Hedberg.
Welcome back to another episode of...
Don't even look at me in the eyes and do that.
She fucks it up all the time. you can't say that. Welcome back to another... We have a very special guest today. Very special. I say that normally. This time I mean it. We have a special guest today. Right?
Yes. I had to whip out my phone so I could read all your credits off, sir.
It's quite
Here we go.
extensive.
So originally from Chicago, you've been on NBC. You work at places like the Laugh Factory, the Improvs, Ice House Comedy Club, All Things Comedy, Levity Live.
No.
You've had a podcast with Eddie Pepitone called PepTaks Podcast. You were a writer for Katt Williams. You're also described by him as the urban Jew. And now you'll be starring in Renaissance Productions' dark comedy Last Chance, due to release this year.
Hey!
Give it up.
Oh my God.
Woo,
Wow,
Steve
wow,
Lolli,
wow.
everybody.
I should just have you travel around and read that off like in Chipotle and shit. When I walk in, like pull out a fucking scroll and go, he has arrived. I mean, the way you read those off, like 70% of those credits are bullshit-ish. You know, like it makes it sound better than it is. But the only credits that are like credits that were really, they're all true. Yes, I was on NBC, and I have been paid to play all those stupid fucking shitty clubs in LA that everybody wants to put their tongue up the ass of, that are so awful. Did you ever see the movie Grapes of Wrath or read the book?
No, I haven't.
Oh, old guy has.
More of your crowd over
The
here.
captain has.
Are you kidding me?
It's basically the dream of going to California during a depression.
Right.
It's basically the metaphor for comedy at the store and the Improv and the... It sucks.
Oh, yeah.
It fucking sucks. The Laugh Factory pays pretty good.
Do they really?
Pay like... And when I say pretty good, on the weekday, if you get a spot there, it's 60.
Wow.
On the weekends, it's 100.
Oh,
But
wow.
I headlined the Lab at the Improv,
Right,
which,
right.
by the way, I wish I'd stayed at home and killed myself. The fucking audience are all... I don't know. It's much longer than we have time for a podcast, but they paid me fucking $10.
$10?
Yeah, and that's like making it. That's when you made it.
I think you left
so
a zero.
LA sucks. Those credits suck. I have them. I use them. I've got I've been around a while, and I got some cool things that whatever looks better than it is. But the Katt Williams thing, that's the real thing.
Okay,
that was my big break. Eddie Pepitone was another huge being acknowledged by a genius thing that happened. And All Things Comedy, those are real. All Things Comedy. Now the All Things Comedy credit, I don't know if podcasts are for demystifying shit. So so the All Things Comedy credit's great.
Let's unveil your true
Eddie
career.
Pepitone brought me in there. And man, I got some stories about that place. But Bill Burr, that's his production company. That's where he does all his specials, and that seems really fucking impressive. But it also creates the illusion that I am Bill Burr's buddy. And that's what I fucking love. That Bill Burr's like, this guy's really fucking funny. Never met the motherfucker. Don't know him, but I take that All Things Comedy, and I gotta tell my manager, put that front fucking center. I'm on brand.
So, are you actually Steve Lolli? This is the question.
Actually, I'm an imposter. And that's how you know you've made it. When the host of the podcast doesn't know if you're even the guy.
But go back to the podcast. So you started what year did you start a podcast with
Eddie? Eddie kind of became my friend, and this is similar with Katt and Eddie, by the way. They both hired me before they had ever seen me live.
Oh.
They never saw me live.
So at that time, you just sent in a tape, and you're like,
well,
here
at the
you
time
are.
of Katt Williams, we're talking MySpace.
Yeah, MySpace.
2007.
Yeah.
And I literally wrote down, he goes, all my friends say you're funny and everybody gets a paycheck. We had all the same friends.
Yeah.
So his friends were telling him this guy's funny, but I looked like the whitest guy ever. I was driving around in a Corolla, and I wasn't trying to pretend to be black like most of the comics.
But you had a Corolla.
South
so
Central.
You kind
I was living in the Corolla. So
living in it.
So and it wasn't paid off. I mean, the only thing about the Corolla that was good was I was moving around so much that my debtors could not find the fucking car to repossess it.
We can't impound him. He's too slippery.
I don't know how I, by the way, got ahead of not having insurance. Anyway, God was watching over me. So, but yeah, he hadn't seen me. So I said, well, you haven't seen me live. And at that point, I had talked to Katt and gotten to know him, and I was no longer kind of intimidated. I realized this guy really respects me and likes me, and he's a nice guy. this is early 2007, and he goes, he goes, well, you can come and write, and everybody gets a paycheck, and if you need a place to live, we have facilities here, and
oh shit,
big
nice.
blessings, man.
Whoa,
and
man.
I mean, I had lived hard and paid some dues for it too, but I was like 29, 30, you know, and so he told me all that, and then I said, well, how about this? Fucking crazy motherfucker I was. I'm a different person now. I was crazy, dude. I go, well, how about this? I'll give you my comedy, my MySpace. That's all I had. I had a MySpace page with videos, and I wrote the fucking MySpace website down in pencil on a fucking piece of paper for him.
Tom would have been so proud of you. Tom from MySpace.
Yeah. I think he'd already sold it at that point. But yeah, and then and I just wanted Katt Williams to watch my stand-up.
Right.
I was like proud of my stand-up, and I thought this guy's gonna like, because he was up there and we were up on the roof, and he was like, you know, I don't even tell any of these Negroes that Richard Pryor is not my favorite comedian. My favorite comedian is George Carlin, and I go, oh well, he might like me. Like, I have some George Carlin-ish kind of stuff online. I had like 2 videos. They were probably about 5 minutes each. And it was just, I was murdering, and nobody was watching them and whatever. And then the next day, each video had been viewed like 1,000 times.
Oh wow! After letting Katt know
After
about
giving it to Katt.
Oh shit!
And I go, and he called me, and he goes, we meet at 8 p.m. and we work through the night. He was like, come, you know, and dude, that was a huge star falling out of the sky on
Absolutely.
me. And so
that was just a few years prior to his Pimp
it was
Chronicles.
just
and all that.
after Pimp. It was right.
Oh, was it? Oh,
it was
shit.
during American Hustle.
Oh shit! Oh
And
man, so that's big Katt.
Yeah, it was the peak. It was. He was like he was about a year from becoming the top guy. I think Larry the Cable Guy was still the top grossing guy.
Quite the contrast, I gotta say.
Yeah. Well, Jeff Dunham, Larry, you know,
that group,
those guys were in there.
Blue collar group. Yeah. So let's take it all the way back. So you're from Chicago originally, right?
Yeah.
And what part of Chicago did you grow up in?
I was born in Chicago Heights, Park Forest, which is the south suburbs.
And did you start comedy in Chicago?
No, and that's why a lot of people are confused. I actually started stand-up in Florida.
Really?
Wait,
I
where
went
in
to
Florida?
the University of Central Florida.
Oh wow!
And I got into a comedy contest. I had done some theater,
right?
And I got into comedy contest to do stand-up at the Student Union.
What year was this around?
1990. See, this is where I usually don't tell people how long I've been doing stand-up because it's so embarrassingly long. People are like, "You've been doing this a long time?" I'm like, "Yeah, embarrassingly long," and I go, "Yeah, over 15 years."
Okay, so this
because that's not embarrassing.
Yeah,
but 1990. This is 96.
We could say it was 2022.
I had done some stand-up in like little things, but I got into this comedy contest at my student union, and I won it. Which is like the fastest kid at the Special Olympics. So let's just be honest. It was me against people who'd never done it, and I'd done it maybe 7 times.
Yeah.
And I won it, and the prize was I got to go host for a week at the Comedy Zone in Orlando, there were just so crazy. There were 2 comedy zones in Orlando. This is how different comedy was. The boom, the 80s boom was still, the remnants of it were still there. So there were 2 fucking full-time comedy zones on opposite sides of the city of Orlando. Plus there were weekend rooms. I guess not Coconuts, but some other chain. They had weekend rooms all over Orlando. So comedy, it was just very different. They had Tuesday through Saturday at both of these rooms, and I got to host. Oh, wow. And I had to do 15 minutes.
Oh, as a new comedian.
I remember having the fucking note cards. How the fuck am I gonna? I have like 4 minutes.
Yeah,
you know, and I'm like, well, I gotta like fake this. That was a huge, great thing. To do that.
We talked about this before. Like sometimes, like a lot of growth in comedy comes in taking spots that you're not prepared for and being kind of thrown into the fire a little bit. You know.
Yeah.
So then that kind of forced you to get 15 minutes from there and kind of just at least figure out how to manage that situation.
It is a survival, a survival thing to have to do it. And I have a videotape of, it was my 22nd birthday or my 23rd birthday. I forget what I think it was my 22nd birthday, and I have a video of it, and I watch it every now and again.
Yeah.
and it sets me back like 10 years.
No.
Watching how fucking awful. I was like, like I loved Robin Williams and Woody Allen. I was trying to do all of them.
Yeah.
I was trying to imitate all of them, and it was just it was horrendous.
That's funny because I heard Bill Burr. Speaking of Bill Burr, he recently I heard him on a podcast, one of his podcasts, saying that he still has VHS tapes of when he first started, and he gets so embarrassed watching them because he always thought he was kind of funny, and then he looks at him now and he's like, Jesus Christ, he can't even watch them. But that's a good point. When do you think you found your own voice in comedy? Because I know this for me. I kind of knew when it clicked. I was still trying to find my footing a little bit, and then I knew when do you know
Well, I had my friend Chris Z. He kind of put it. He goes, one time he goes, "Oh, you had a breakthrough session." That's what he called it. Right. There were different periods. There were different
chapters.
There were different signposts, forks in the road. One was in Florida, and I went on one night, and I would do routines, or I would sometimes take new material on, but it was a routine. I was trying new things, but they were routines. And then one night I went up without, and I just winged it. I was probably 23.
All right.
So it was that year. It was later that year, January. The first paying gig was January of 97.
Uh-huh.
And then somewhere in 97,
right,
I winged it, and I just riffed, and I just killed the room. I killed the room.
Yeah.
And I remember coming off stage going, what the fuck did I just do? And can I ever do that again?
Yeah.
And I didn't. I was too afraid, but I did do it.
Right.
And so I remembered you could do that.
It was in you, yeah.
And also the crowd respected innately. Crowds are weird. You just don't know what your crowd is, but
right.
Crowds do innately respect when they feel like the guys walking the tightrope?
Right,
or the girls walking the tightrope, trying to make this gender inclusive, because I'm such a fucking
we are
sexist.
in my house,
Yeah, I feel like they knew I was doing something outside of
kind of improvised kind
yes,
of. Yes,
and it had to be because I was talking about the room. I wasn't doing crowd work. I've never been good at crowd work, but I was working the crowd. I was looking around and pointing things out about the room. There was a bunch of black folks there. It was in Orlando. It was in Altamont Springs, Orlando, and there were a bunch of black folks there, and they were all in one section, and I called it a segregated comedy show. And I remember the roof caved. I mean, people were laughing so hard at that because they probably watched 17 comics go on, and not
no one
acknowledge what was happening in the room. And so, looking back, and then I almost got laid after that show. There was a hot woman in the audience who came and took me into another it was in a hotel, and there was those banquet rooms, and she took me in another banquet room, and she was making out with me, and I was like, I think I'm onto something here. So
2 more sets like this and I'll actually get laid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I conned my way onto the road
when
I was 24, and I went on the road, conned my way, but I made VHS, whatever. Somehow God was watching over me, and I was able to go on the road as a feature act.
Oh, wow.
Who did you go on the road with?
Me. I mean, I was a feature act. Back in those days. Back in my day! This is true. It's a weird thing to even say now. Back in those days, the club hired the feature. They didn't travel with the headliner. The club would hire the fucking feature, and the feature would go for a week.
Yeah.
And do a week in Omaha or whatever.
Oh, wow.
And I got a year of that. I got 36 weeks of that through Heffron, which is in North Carolina. It's an agency. And I got Coconuts, which had 70,000 clubs back then. Anyway, I went on the road as a feature, and I got to open up for Mitch Hedberg, dude.
Well, yeah, I saw that picture of you. I don't know where it was.
Yeah, that was in Birmingham, Alabama at the Stardome. And Heffron, that guy really is an angel. Brian Heffron, if you're out there, thank you, man.
Shout out to Heffron.
I came off that year. I probably had 12 minutes. And I ended that year, I could do 25. Because I was having to do 20. And I was I was confident. I was like, I'm going to fake this. I can do this, and I did. And when I'd have really good sets, I'd notice, wow, 30 minutes is easy.
Oh.
When you're good, when people are good, 30 minutes is nothing.
Yeah. Oh.
And that year was amazing. It was 2001, and I came off the road. That was another great, even though I I ended up basically maxing out a credit card, and
it's comedy. So
you'd make $500 a week for playing the club, and you'd spend 170 on gas to get to wherever the fuck.
Yeah.
Anyway,
and then you're eating out every night.
yeah,
and trying to figure it out.
Yes, and I had a Discover card, and I was also 24. I was like, I didn't care. I actually didn't care.
You have any funny stories with Hedberg or anything you remember?
Yeah,
about that,
I got a couple.
This was before he died, right? I'm sorry.
That was right up there with the Amistad. Hey man, why are you talking to me like I'm a spectator?
Stop
Why are you?
Just want to make sure got our facts straight here.
Why are you treating me like a phantom? Hedberg, I was the opener and Kenny Smith was the feature, and Kenny Smith got deathly ill like the day after the first show, and I had to rush him to the fucking clinic.
Oh wow.
And that guy treated me like I was pulled him out of a foxhole in fucking World War II. I can never repay you and thank you enough. I thought I was going to die, and no. I'm like, I drove you to the clinic, dude. I mean, who would, like, the basic level of humanity would have had to be so low for me to not help you.
You could have ordered
But
an ambulance.
he goes, if I can't do it, they're going to ask you to feature. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Featuring for Mitch Hedberg. But the first night I had a great set, and then the rest of the week I bombed mercilessly all week. Until Mitch Hedberg was like, hey, man, I have this... Kenny Smith had the MDMA. He wanted to get high with Mitch.
Okay.
But he wasn't feeling well. So he gave the pill to Mitch, and Mitch was like, well, I don't want to take a whole pill. Anybody want a half? I took half. I took half of a fucking roll. I guess it was called roll back then. MDMA with Mitch Hedberg.
Wow. Whoa.
And that was the only other good set I had.
So what did you learn out of all of that experience of that
week? I know nothing. That's what I learned. I was like, I don't know what the fuck, but what a great week. And I got laid multiple times.
Oh, wow.
And the girl who checked Kenny in at the clinic came to my hotel room and fucked me.
Oh, wow.
So I got the fucking real World War II send off. Right. She came and it was crazy. And then Hedberg, apparently a bunch of people flooded the green room one night because they have a big green. This is a 400-seat comedy.
Yeah.
I think at the time it was the biggest comedy club in the country.
Really?
The Stardome in Birmingham.
In Birmingham?
Yeah.
Wow.
And he sold it out like 6 shows or whatever.
Well, he was hilarious.
Because this 2001 he was
that's what
top,
right, yeah.
Maybe
he was
the
on
top,
Comedy Central
one of the
around
top guys.
Yeah.
And I got one other good Mitch Hedberg. I got one other good Mitch Hedberg story that I've never told on the record. It's just for your podcast.
Yeah, let's go.
But but okay, so apparently Hedberg had ordered fucking food for everyone in the green room. And because he was just trying to be a nice guy.
Yeah.
But he really wanted everybody out. And I was starting to get fucking irritated because I have insane, especially at that time, insane Jewish jitters, like nervous Jewish mother.
Of the JJs.
Yeah, before my shows, I'm especially then I was brand new. I don't know what the fuck how to do anything. And Hedberg, you could tell, was kind of fidgeting, and I go, okay, everyone out.
That's a move.
And they fucking all went out, and Mitch goes, thank you, Lolli. I appreciate that, man. I really appreciate it. The other thing was he would go, because Mitch would lose himself on stage. He would lose track of time, and the waitresses would be getting antsy because they want to go home, And these shows, I keep my eyes closed so I see an audience that is enjoying the show more, painted on the inside of my eyelids. He's just up there like wandering around, and he goes, hey, let's bring Steve back out here, like at the end of his set.
Oh, wow.
Hey, Steve, you want to sing a song for the audience? And I was like, yeah! And I'm fucking rolling. So I'm like, and I go out and I start singing a blues song.
Oh, wow. And
I'm like, I don't know what the fuck I was doing. And he goes, that's too good, man. Give me that microphone back. I was trying to make fun of you. So that's a good story. But at the end of the weekend, the fucking club comes back to me. Hedberg's gone. And I want to get all the Hedberg shit because this is good shit.
I'm loving it.
He's gone. And they come back and they go, hey, nobody paid for these nachos that that somebody ordered a bunch of food back here and nobody paid the bill, and I got stuck.
What's the bill?
It was like $30 or something, but basically I was making $300 for the entire week to host, I don't know, 7 or 8 shows or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck. But you know what? I was kind of like the kid in Almost Famous. I was so grateful for the experience of. I was like, well, whatever, you know. And then I drove Hedberg home one night because he didn't have a ride, and I'll take you back to the hotel. Yeah. And of course, we're staying in we're staying in like the fucking Motel 9. Hedberg staying in the fucking United Nations. Welcome, you know, fucking fountains outside and shit. And I go, yeah, man, what's LA like? I'm really interested, you know. And we had some conversations, you know. And he goes, oh, okay, man, look me up when you get to LA. And I had a yellow legal pad, as all comics have, in their car. Had a yellow legal pad, totally blank. And he wrote I had a pencil. He wrote in pencil across the thing, Hedberg and 909, and this is my cabin number. You call me. And I had that, and I fucking lost it.
Oh, man.
No, I called him, but I mean, over the years, I could have framed that. I could have framed that and sold it for thousands of dollars.
Little did you know.
It was Hedberg. You know, they might not have believed, but you know. The other thing is, so that is a good one. And then, was there anything else? We had some conversations because Mitch was like, you know, he was a comic, but like a lot of comics, he was dreaming of more creative things.
Right.
And he loved movies. And I told him I had gone to film school, which didn't mean shit, but whatever. I had gone to film school, and he was like, "Hey, you've gone to film school. That's interesting. You could probably help make a movie, huh?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, yeah."
Of course I can. I'm your guy.
So then I was like, God, I would love to make a movie with Mitch Hedberg, but I didn't have the nerve to say. And anyway, that was my experience. And I saw him when I moved to LA. I saw him. He invited me to shows and got me into the Improv to see him a couple times. And I don't know how much he really liked me. I was a hanger-arounder. I was like a lot of new comics. I was looking for help. I had no money, and I probably was annoying. And but I will tell you this story from the green room. So Mitch Hedberg, I started in Orlando, but I also did Coconuts. And I did, before I was getting paid, like 22 to 24, I was doing spots where I would drive from Orlando to St. Pete and do.
Oh shit!
There was nothing. There weren't a lot of comedy. There were no open mics, by the way. The clubs didn't have. So, Coconuts had an open mic. It was in the Howard Johnson on St. Pete Beach. It was old, classic, famous Coconuts that had been there since '84 or whatever. Right. This is the club that Mitch Hedberg started in.
Really? He started here in Florida?
He started in Florida.
Yep, in St. Pete.
Mitch Hedberg did?
You didn't know that?
I had no idea. No,
I'm from Philly originally. I didn't know that either.
All right.
He started in St. Pete, and I had known that because he was Mitch Hedberg, and people talk, and they were like, you know, he started at Coke, and I was like, kind of disbelief about that. I was like, Coconut's like a shithole. Yeah. You know what? But that's where he started. So Bob had been hiring him, and you know, paying him and employing him, and Shoemaker, the guy who owned Coconuts. Yeah. And
good old Bob.
So when Mitch Hedberg got famous, word spread really fast. Mitch Hedberg, the improvs had expanded. There were no improvs. They had suddenly ones in Houston and ones here in Florida. I think there was one in Tampa, and they had just opened up one in Tampa, and then they have the other club. You know, the other club in Tampa. There's another.
What was it?
Side Splitters?
Yeah.
Side Splitters, yeah.
That place. So these were A room. These were like. We would consider them top rooms.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But Mitch Hedberg headlined fucking Coconuts. He went and spent a week and went into his home club.
Hey, yeah, you went to show
and probably sold out that place, made Bob Shoemaker a fucking fortune. Yeah. And I remembered that he did that, and I was like, I want to meet him. That's cool that he did that. And I said, hey, man, I started out in the clubs that you started out in, sorta. Not really, but sorta. And I said, I think that's really cool. I heard you went in and headlined this club, and I just think that's really cool. And he looks directly at me and he goes, do you know, man, that cheap piece of shit made me take out my own ad in the newspaper.
Shout out.
I have never told that story on the record ever. And I headlined Coconuts, and I didn't have the balls on stage to fucking tell that fucking story. But it is so great. And I just thought, oh my God, if Mitch Hedberg gets disrespected by these people, what chance do I have in life? If he's being treated like a second-class citizen when he's coming in to do a favor, oh my God.
So let me take it back here. I like to ask this question a lot. When you started out, like growing up, were you a funny child, like the funny one in your family?
Yeah. What got you started in comedy? What was the moment where you're just like, I wanted
to fuck a girl that I wanted to fuck.
Oh yeah.
I wanted to
Has
actually.
it happened yet? Or?
It did by 23. By 23, it was happening.
You're just like, I'm gonna become a knight at UCF, and then I'm gonna go.
I went to the first college that took me, and no, but back then, dude, I could have a set that wasn't even good, and girls would fool around.
Things have changed.
I was a kid. Yeah, things have changed.
Every time I bomb, it's like the girls just run out the room.
Yeah. Well, you might be a little darker. I was trying to be cute.
Was that what you just?
was like,
complexion-wise, you mean?
What do you mean?
It was racist. Totally. Amistad. Nobody will know what that means.
Yeah, it's an inside joke on that one.
Nick, can we get a Google search on that? I'm kidding.
She's kidding.
But do you remember that
joking.
Was there like a triggering thing in your life where you're like, this is the first, like I want to try this? Like what inspired you to get on stage at first time?
I had done some acting on stage, and it came kind of naturally to me, and I was doing well with it. But God, I was like, this is just not heterosexual enough for me. Really, I had that conscious thought that I need to be around, like, this is super fun. These theater people they're just so gay, and it's fun and everything, but God, I mean, and I'd seen, there was a guy, and he came to me, and he said, hey, did you ever think of stand-up? And I had not. I had never thought. It scared the shit out of me. I mean, I wasn't watching stand-up thinking I should do this. Right. I was watching stand-up thinking, I don't want to ever do that. That is terrifying. Look at, and what I was watching, rightfully so, I was watching Raw and Carlin and Kinnison, and what fucking business did I have doing that? You know, it was pre-comedy, like, I think it's a little bit pre-Comedy Central, so all of the bullshit comics on Comedy Central hadn't appeared yet that I would later watch and go, ooh, I think I should do this. I can do this.
It's not that difficult.
Yeah, that was exactly what I started thinking when. So the guy told me, and I go, well, shit, you know, I'm bored to violence at this point in my teenage years. I'm bored to violence. I might as well try something that is dangerous and see. And what was weird was the first time I did it, I did well. Right. And I was bad, and I did well. Right. And whatever, that crowd was amped up. And it deceived me into thinking I'm a fucking god.
It's like beginner's luck almost.
It happens. Some people, like, on their
beginner's
first
blessing.
Beginner's blessing.
Because I kept, then I was like, oh, I'll do it again. And then the second time didn't go that way. And then the third time didn't go that way. And then, like, somewhere along the way, I got somewhere I did okay. And I'd do okay a few times. And I'd be like, okay, I had been on stage, so I kind of felt comfortable enough on stage. And I just kept kind of throwing. I was bored. I was doing it because I was bored. Right. And then I got laid. And I remember that girl who I had no business sleeping with. And I actually, like, dated her a little until she was like, I need to sleep with someone who has a little more money than you. Yeah, she was very sweet, but she was so cute. She was the kind of girl the kind of girl that if you get close to her and pretend you're gonna tickle her, she goes fucking crazy. Like that kind of girl. She was that girl. She just loses her shit when you, like, pretend you're gonna
pretend you're touching her.
I do that. I fucking
you do, yeah. I might have quit comedy if I'd met you. Yeah. Instead, I might have gone.
You would be an accountant.
Yeah, I would be like, fuck this. I'm going back to college and finishing. This is for the birds. If this is what's at the end of this street, I don't need that shit.
So if you have trouble quitting comedy, come see me.
Exactly.
Come tickle Lauren. She'll take care of you.
I have some friends I'm going to send your way, actually.
You let a gal
know. Jeez, they need a Lauren in their life.
So then when did you move to LA?
So in 2001, I basically was on the road for almost that whole year. And then I got Mitch Hedberg's manager got me a audition for a movie, and I packed up my shit, and I packed up my car, and I went. And a showcase at the Laugh Factory.
Was it a porn movie or was it regular?
It was a movie that never got released, actually, which I'm proud of because they didn't have me in that fucking movie. So if they hired me for that movie,
that's what you get, bitches.
This was really cool. This is another. I've had some breaks, man. Like just the fact that the guy asked me, he goes, "What role do you?" He sent me the script and he goes, "What role do you want to?" Like this, what does this happen for? What role do you want to read for? And I did exactly that. I go, I want that role of the lead guy. And I went in and I got the cold sweats and I went. That's all, folks. And that was it. And so that I didn't get that, but the movie never got bought or distributed. It's still out there somewhere. It was like it was like a knockoff, some cross between like a sex comedy of the 90s, like not an American Pie. It wasn't dumb, but it was like a cross between that target audience and like a Jesse Eisenberg art film or something. And it was about a college kid who wants to be a radio host, but he wants the radio slot at like 4 a.m. so nobody hears it. I see. It was like that kind of weird. Oh, okay. Yeah, it was whatever. Like it was
an
fine.
Artsy film.
It was like an artsy comedy,
meta art,
independent comedy film. And I read for it. I could have been a little more savvy and read for a smaller part. And maybe not as had much pressure. So I didn't get that, and I was in LA, and I was like, well, what am I gonna do? And I really had the thought. Part of me was like, I'm gonna get this movie, and that's gonna be it. And then I didn't get it, and then I'm like, oh, I'm fucked.
Square one.
So so I guess stand up maybe, and I had asked around, and a guy made me a list of comedy clubs. He goes, here's because I wasn't gonna get on at the Improv or they weren't gonna put me on. So I go, can you tell me some places where I can do stand up? And they gave me a list, and one of those comedy clubs was a comedy club called Mixed Nuts Comedy Club on Washington and Crenshaw. Oh, wow. And it was South Central LA. I was 25. At this point, I was 25 years old. And I went down and I gave a VHS tape to the Nigerian owner of this comedy club.
I love that.
Watched it. I called him and I said, hey, did you watch my tape? He goes, yes, I watched it. Maybe you're better in person.
I'll have you know, sir, I am not.
I wasn't even insulted by that because there was still a window open for me. I didn't even take it as an insult. I was like, oh, thank God. And I didn't know he had an ulterior motive. He wanted some white people in his club. He wanted it. Okay. And I went there, and that was another breakthrough. That night. It was February of 2002. So I had just moved to LA, and I went on a Tuesday night. The host was a comic named Bo P. He's still around. You can look him up. I think he lives in Atlanta now. Very funny dude. Southern, very Cajun brother. And I think he played college football. And I remember how jarring it was that the brothers in LA, they smoke weed right out on the street. They roll their blunts, and I'm like, isn't this don't the cops hate you? And I go, everything I know from hip hop tells me that you probably shouldn't be doing this. But he's like, it's all right, bro. We're cool. Don't even worry about it. And I was like, something just, put me at ease. I was like, wow, I'm not, like, my nervous Jewishness was not as, I was scared as fuck to go on stage, but I went on that night, and I don't know what I did. They loved me, and I couldn't sleep that night. I was so high, not from weed. I was high from the experience, and I was like, holy shit, maybe I'm actually good at this. I'd been really conning my way through and faking my way through, and I was not a good comedian. I maybe had 7 minutes of good material, like a 7 minute, and then the rest of the 25 set was something I'd never want anybody I respect to see. I had a great set, and I remember I closed my set. So I had this bit called a One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest answering machine. This is the 90s and the 2000s. Like, why am I doing a bit about One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest?
It's a great movie.
That
Timeless.
anyone even knows this in my audience, they're not gonna know this bit. And I would do it, and nobody would ever laugh. And I would do it because I would muster the courage and I think this is funny.
Yeah.
And some reason, God, I don't know why, I closed my show with that at Mixed Nuts Comedy Club on and it brought the fucking house down. And I remember having the conscious thought, I'm really scared down there, but maybe I belong here.
Turns
like,
out
what
black
if
people
this
like
is
Jack
where I'm
Nicholson?
supposed to be? Well, the bit is back in my day when we had answering machines. My buddy, my roommate in college had a super high tech, like, what was Sharper Image? Remember that?
Cool shit. All the cool shit.
The high tech shit. He had like a high tech audio recording thing that you didn't have to. It wasn't an answering machine. It was you just leave the digital message, and it just And we took it because we'd get stoned and take acid. We took it to the fucking TV, and we put different messages from movies and shows on our to fucking confuse people because we thought it was funny. And we did a scene from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and it's the scene where it's late at night and all of the lunatics are hiding from the night nurse.
Right.
They're having a party, and the night nurse comes in, and they have to go hide. And so when you would call my apartment, you would hear this. Where's Turkle? Why doesn't he answer? He's probably jerking off somewhere. Ain't nobody jerking off nowhere, motherfucker. Turkle, go out there. What the fuck you doing? Go out there and talk to her. I'm doing the same thing you're doing, Mac Murphy. Hiding, motherfucker.
I can see why they like that joke, though.
I'm changing my answering machine tomorrow.
By the way, my buddy's racist father thought black people were robbing our apartment when he would call.
It's like, Steve, I'm calling the cops right now. Hang tight. Stop masturbating. I'm calling the cops right now.
And then my mother goes, "What's going on there? What's going on?" And it's, I don't understand what's on your thing. So it caused confusion, and we took it off. But it turned into a bit. I tried to make funny, and I went into South Central LA. And when I did that fucking Scatman Carruthers voice, black folks just were falling out of their fucking chairs, and I was like, man, I was in denial of like the message I was getting from above, which was, this is where you're supposed to be. Black people are going to let you do this. They're going to encourage you. They're going to show you love. And nobody else in Los Angeles is going to show you anything but a fucking foot in the ass.
Wow.
So.
Yeah. So you say that. I just have how did that experience, like, in that room affect the rest of your career? You found one place that you truly felt like you belonged, and then the rest you're just like, fuck it, I'm just gonna stick with this.
No, I was in denial.
You were in denial.
I was in denial for about a year. I keep going down there, but I keep trying
other places, right.
the north side, the north of Washington. There's south of Pico and north of Pico, and south of Pico is very black and Mexican, and north of Pico is very getting whiter and more Hollywood, and people who inherited money and property or whatever. And I was like, I don't want to be a BET comic view. I mean, I was like, that's not where I was in denial. Totally is the only way to put it. And every time and that's a great question, because every time I would do a show in a black room, the comics in that room would be like, man, you're really funny. Come to this place. Come to that place. I wasn't getting paid, but I was getting stage time. And within a year, I got so much funnier. And I was a real comic. Right. Within a year, I was actually a real comic, saying things I really meant, trying dangerous shit. Yeah. And nobody knew that was happening. But I was like, gosh, if anyone knew this was happening, this would be a thing. Right. Because it was so different. And I was 26, 25. And I looked 18. I looked like a kid. Right. So, there were only a handful of white comics down there. There were 4 or 5. I mean, I think there were a couple white comics that had gotten a little bit of fame, and they weren't in those clubs anymore. They were traveling like Gary Owen and whatnot. But Nema Williams, Honest John, Roger Rod, and me, and that was it. And I think Ralphie May was from there, so he was also. But they were more mainstream then, and anyway, I kept getting led into deeper and deeper into South Central LA, and I was in places like the Spade Castle, where it's a blues juke joints. They're juke joints. They have a comedy night, the Family Room in Gardena, and the Hawks 99er and Market Street Bar and Grill in Inglewood, and I was allowed to do 10 or 15 minutes, and I was learning to actually like express different things just than a comic like Seinfeld standing up and reciting ideas. Yeah. I was like learning to express anger and be loud and be animated,
play around a bit.
And because in white clubs, even the white comics scare white audiences.
Because when I was doing,
I feel that hard. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I feel so. I didn't have the necessary experience you had in the beginning, but like. Definitely, most of the times I've performed at the Tampa Funny Bone Improv, it was mostly black audiences, and I felt so different compared to like a white audience. And I don't have as much experience as you do in that, but I feel you on that.
And when I was looking into, like when we were doing research, like that's what it was saying, that you kind of blew up in the black crowd. What is it about your comedy you think that kind of like attracted the black audiences over like the white audiences more?
That's like $1 million question.
Well, we have a black person. Bring him in. Can you bring him in? Can I ask him here?
Stop talking about my black cat.
Oh my God. Amistad. Let's just say it. Amistad.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That's funny because I wonder what it is, because I do notice with them they're a little more freer. It seems like, I don't know, they're a little more, where it seems like with the white couple you were saying Seinfeld's a little more structured, a little more prepared almost. Where maybe I'm saying the wrong
remember being
words.
struck when I went to the Improv, the Hollywood Improv, and seeing the comedy. And also, I really didn't know yet enough about comedy to understand the comics at the Improv and places like that. They're getting a tremendous amount of revenue from their writing or from their show they're on, or they don't need the Hollywood. Like, if you're a regular in the big clubs, first of all, they don't pay anything, so you can't. You're only there working shit out. So they might have been goofing around, but I was struck by how mediocre and not really funny the comics in Hollywood were. Even when I moved there, I was like, wow, this isn't really that. I mean, I've been on the road with hacky comics. I wouldn't say the comics in Hollywood are hacky, but they're just not great.
Right.
So but then again, I wasn't great, so I kind of kept that to myself because I'm not going to be an asshole and I knew I wasn't very good, so I wasn't going to throw these people on the bus. But I did have the thought that, well, I guess I don't have to be that great. I wasn't intimidated.
Right.
But then when I went into the black rooms, the comics were dynamic. Even the comics who weren't the most original were such dynamic performers. Like, they were really putting on a show.
Right. Energy is a little higher.
Energy like. And I saw like Annie McKnight, probably a comic you never heard of, and Rodney Perry, comics like this, riff on the, like, they would turn the entire room into 20 or 30 minutes.
Right.
And that was like mesmerizing. And also I'm thinking, well, what are they going to do with that? Because now that set is over, and did you do material? So I'm new. I'm kind of learning. I'm just watching and absorbing and learning, and I was getting funnier also because I'm kind of an angry guy, and they were eating up my angry shit. I could be angry. I could be angry in front of a black crowd because black people are fucking angry, and so that it was authentic. Right. I mean, it could have gone the wrong way, but I was authentically angry. Right. I had attitude, and so I wasn't pretending, and I wasn't pretending to be black. Maybe they liked that. I don't know, but they kept loving me and inviting me, and comics would in the black rooms. The host is the star. Right. So Ramona Stevens was the star. And before my time, but Robin Harris was the star. Right. And the host was so that was totally different because the host was the star, and the host kind of was the headliner, and everybody else was showcasing. And also at the comedy at the Hollywood Park Casino, Katt Williams, unbeknown to me, was Cat in the Hat. He was hosting a show at the Hollywood Park Casino, which was being produced, unbeknown to me, by a guy who I had recently befriended named Ricochet, who was a guy who discovered Katt Williams and found him and gave him this launching pad where he was also someone who no one would let on stage. He wasn't in cliques, and he gave him this stage and call it Cat House Live, and Katt would go on till like 3 a.m. People would stay and listen to Katt because he could just read you the phone book. I can read you the instructions off an instruction manual with his voice. And he was the host of that show on The Star. And so that was all. LA black comedy was another world, and it was real and it existed, and sometimes you get a few bucks, sometimes you get $20, sometimes you get $50 for a show. And I did a show at the place called the Flamingo Biker Bar, Black Biker Bar.
Oh wow!
And the guy who hosted it, we try to remember his name now. Fuck, I forget his name. But he was a cool dude. But he goes, come on down. Back in those days, no text, no. You're just come down this time. Here's the address, and you find your way. Right. And I'm like, whoa, I'm on Slauson and Rampart or something. I'm in a place where white people get lost. You know what I mean? And
you mean robbed?
Robbed, maybe. And I remember the guy saying to me, none of the other comics showed up, and it's just you and me. Ooh. And I performed that night like the guy and the pianist for the Nazi. At the end of the pianist, remember? I performed that night. Like the guy and the pianist performing for the Nazi. And the owner of the biker bar came up to me after the show, and he gave me an envelope of money. And none of that money went to the guy who booked me. I don't think he got paid. Because he did a long set, and he did like 40 minutes, and then he put me on. And I don't know how long I did. I might have done 20, 30, I don't know. But I performed I was like, I don't want to not walk out of here. Right. I want to like survive this. And he handed me an envelope of money. I think there was like $70 or $80 in it, and I was like, God, if anyone knew this shit was happening, it would be a wild, legendary thing. And that was probably like 2004, 2004. But I was getting funny. I was getting and learning to do stand-up, and the guy who was the most famous was Dane Cook. So I was kind of looking at comedy like, is there anywhere for me? I mean, I'm going to keep doing this, but like I don't know if I'm basically, and I'm living in my car basically, and then a couple years later, I met Katt, and we had all the same friends. Right. Ricochet was producing. The guy who produced him was producing shows at Mixed Nuts, and he was the only person at Mixed Nuts Comedy Club that knew what he was fucking doing. Mm-hmm. Like he knew how to set a lineup, he knew how to curate a show.
Oh, that's so important.
Right.
So important, and he was a cool dude. He was totally in control, and every time he was there, I would feel like a deep breath.
Comfortable.
Yeah. And because it was rough. Even though that club acknowledged me and accepted me, I would bomb there on the weekends. I would do well Tuesday through Thursday. And then on Fridays and Saturdays, it would get real Def Jam. And I would go in and bomb. And then I wouldn't voluntarily not try to perform on a Friday or Saturday.
No, I'm not busy this Friday.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I wouldn't even try. And then months later, I'd come back to the owner and go, okay, I think I'm ready. And I'd try and I'd bomb again. And this went on for about a year and a half. But then Ricochet started doing weekends. And he would put me on, and he would give me a good spot. He had no ego. He wasn't a comic, so he had no ego involved. And he'd give me, and I'd always succeed. And I had no idea he was Katt's best friend. And then later on, I found out, and I went, oh, no wonder. Katt has people around him who are the smart people. Mm-hmm. Right. He doesn't have any of the dumb people around. Right. He's selected and been very, very careful with cutting out all. And he even told me, I don't have any time for bullshit comics.
Yeah. Which is impressive, it seems like there's so much bullshit people around in comedy in a way.
I'm right here. You don't have to.
Lauren, let the men talk. Step
No,
outside for a second.
she's the cleaner. She stops those people.
Yeah. No, but you know, there's so much ass kissing in comedy and so much of like trying to get with a booker and trying to. You almost have to keep these superficial relationships around. And it's impressive that Katt was able to get to the top by still filtering out to the degree that he was able to do it. You know what I mean?
He got blessings. I mean, the fact that the guy who discovered him was not in comedy. The guy who discovered him owned a fish market and refurbished cars. Ricochet, he wasn't in comedy. He just decided after the riots he was gonna do something. He was like, people need to laugh, and he got a room, and he was not in comedy. He wasn't in the cliques. He didn't have any of the hang-ups of, this is Mike Epps and these are the important people. He didn't have any of that. He was just looking for a funny person to host his show, and he saw Katt, and he went, this is my host.
Kind of stars the line.
He got the blessing from above, and Rick got a blessing too because he found a great artist. He couldn't have known he was going to be producing the next guy who was going to change comedy.
Yeah, I mean, Katt, he's been up here for a long time, right? He's been one of the best. And then fast forward 2 questions. Number 1, how was it like working with him on that show? And then fast forward all these years later, hearing the podcast that he was on, that interview. We want to know what your perspective on that is, because you kind of had like a different.
I can give you my perspective. First of all, because I know Katt, I know that he was probably watching Shannon Sharp, having all of those people that Katt talked about on his podcast. Yeah. And I know Katt, and Katt is like a miniature Michael Jordan. So when Michael Jordan, and even if he thought people talk shit about him, he was out to murder them. Yeah. So Katt is a 5 foot whatever version of that. Right. So Katt was aware of these people going on, and he already has grievances with them, and then they're going on and whatever. So you can imagine he was waiting and biding his time for his opportunity to go on, and also go at Shannon Sharp for. I just want to. You don't ask them these questions, Shannon, and I'm coming at you for your own journalistic integrity. And when he said that, I went, oh, he's been voyeuring. He's been waiting, lying in wait, and so that is a perspective I'm pretty sure was happening, and not that they were even talking about Katt much, but. Even if they just talked a little, Katt was like, I'm going off on all this. And then, there's a certain amount of ego that Katt's. I read 75 books and I run a 4 or 5 40. I only bring people on the road who are funnier than I am. No, you don't.
You've heard it here, folks.
Cookie is not. I mean, he brings bangers on the road. But not funnier. I mean, Cookie is not funnier than. Militant is not funnier than Katt. Right. Come on, he's exaggerating. But he does bring funny people. But I understand what he's saying. But he's exaggerating with his ego. Yeah. But the stuff that he's talking about with regards to Steve Harvey stealing from, these are things that I didn't even know.
Really, we were going to ask it about specifically about the stealing jokes thing, and if
Steve Harvey stealing from Mark Curry.
No,
Mark Curry had a show, so he. It's kind of like there's a demon and there's God. And then there's the demon that's the ego. And then there's God that's saying, Katt is a believer in God. And he's telling you there's something at the end of this that there's transactions that happen in show business because people want this lifestyle. And there's transactions that happen that are unholy. And whether it's man against man or man against creator, there's shit at the end of this corridor when you're caught up in the hustle. Right. You might not, and he's not lying. I believe everything he's saying, and I think he's. Is that me?
Oh no. Who's calling? Your mom?
It's Katt Williams. Put him on hold there.
I don't even know this white man. I've never met him.
Immediately is like, I don't know what he's talking about.
If I blow up, he's going to talk shit about me too. I don't even know why. He's ridden off my coattails for 17 years. And I only gave him a check for $500 because I felt bad for the motherfucker.
That's funny. Shit.
Oh my god.
But the Mark Curry stuff. I mean, and now with the internet, there's all these receipts everyone's pulling out. So
yeah, so
they're saying Steve Harvey, Mark Curry had the show when he was essentially the same thing. He was a high school teacher. He had a show, then Steve Harvey stole it. And there's a couple jokes that Steve Harvey...
he stole his jokes too.
And he stole his jokes too from him. And then now on the internet, after Katt Williams, because you hear Katt Williams, and I'm listening to it, and I'm like, okay, some of it... It's like there's a little bit of truth mixed in with some of the exaggeration. So it's like it's hard for me to gouge how much of it is true. But then the internet comes out now and they're just providing all these receipts. So Cedric the Entertainer stealing a joke from Katt Williams, and they have Katt Williams doing it on Comic View about him parking up in the car, which is a hilarious bit, by the way.
Yeah, that's a great bit.
And then Cedric the Entertainer comes in and he uses it on
a spaceship bit.
Yeah, exactly. And then Cedric uses it on a spaceship bit, which he did on Kings of Comedy, which is like a massive platform.
Yeah,
so
but probably just a really talented, lazy motherfucker, Cedric.
Yeah.
That's the worst.
That's a fair
kind of
lazy.
Yeah. I mean,
he also stole a designing women bit, which Katt didn't even. But the internet, now the internet, they found that, and I never knew about that. And he stole it verbatim and only changed a couple words. So,
wow.
I think the thing that I would want to say that's kind of the critical thing is that Katt is, and I know there's a bunch of knockoffs of Katt now, and comics trying to capitalize on their own gossip porn. And what Katt did was very authentic. It was something he really felt. And I know now that Corey Holcomb and all these comics are not. Corey Holcomb has always done this stuff too, but all these other comics are now doing their.
Monique came on Shay
there, and also I'm
not
even gonna say names because I don't need to attract that kind of negative.
Yeah.
I understand the gossip porn is part of comedy now, and that there's these sort of beefs and battles, and the web is a place for that. But what Katt did was what he was really thinking and feeling, and he didn't need to do it. He was selling out 10 to 15,000 seats still, but there is a new generation of people who never heard the name Katt Williams who now know him from doing this, whether intentionally or not. And Katt is unique because he, like these comics like Smiley and Harvey and Cedric, and they are a crew. A lot of these guys are in crews and cliques, as you know. You have your local cliques and crews, and they get stage time and they get little power and keep the gate here and there and whatnot. And in Hollywood, it's no different. And a lot of those cliques and crews are tethered together. They're tethered together, and they're tethered to corporations and entities that are feeding their families. And Katt is sort of independent of all of that, and always has been. And he actually got his fame sort of independent of that. He never starred in a movie or a television show and was the top grossing comic in the country, North America, without a movie star or a show that he headlined. So he's sort of independent in a way, and what gives him the freedom to say whatever he wants.
Yeah, because he's not tied to any.
He's not even tied to Burr or Joe Rogan or the Comedy Store or any of the clubs or NBC or Montreal or any of that. So he can say, Joe doesn't need me on his podcast. He's got 6 unfunny motherfuckers that need to be on there right now. And nobody said that until Katt. But every comic is thinking, why is Brendan Shaw? Why is Tony Hinchcliffe? Why is Andrew Schultz? Why are these comics why are they the buddies of the guy who's the kingmaker? Are they really good, or is it because they're his friend?
Man, you see what his draw did to Austin now, too. You see him moving to Austin. And it's funny you say that because Katt was on the Joe Rogan Experience a little bit after that.
I know.
And then on the next episode, Joe said he tried to invite him to his comedy club. He has a big mothership down there. Right. And he was like, no, I do arenas. He was like, I don't do clubs, I do arenas. And so just to show that, everyone's hanging off of the tit of Joe Rogan, and he's just like, nope, I don't want any of it.
Dude, there's at least 20 to 30 comedians that we all know that have moved to Austin to just get on the Mothership or Kill Tony. It's wild the amount of people that have been moving.
It makes it even more insane that this guy is not tethered to any comedy institution at all. He's totally. I don't know that he. Oh yeah, he has said I'm the king of underground comedy and stuff like that, but I don't know that people really understand how unique of a thing that is. It would have been a more unique thing in the a less unique thing in the 70s or 80s.
Right.
But to come up in the 90s, 2000s, and not need Comedy Central, you don't need BET, you don't need HBO.
So I have a question. I'm so sorry to interrupt. So if there's a comedian looking to be more that and not be tethered to any, as you said, any entities, do you have advice for them? Would you? I was just curious.
I mean, I'm coming on with my credits, telling you how I love you. Reading my credits. I don't.
You're like, Laugh Factory, I love you.
No, because I say that.
You know,
I say that because it's almost the harder road, because when you become involved, I used to be on a team. Like, it's a team. It feels like you're a part of something, and that can be comforting. But as a performer that is on their own, it's a much lonelier journey.
And it seems a little more desirable. I think once you start rubbing elbows, once you get a taste of like how shitty it is, you know, being bumped, or when you get into that little clique, you start to see how it is. It's almost like you desire to row less, you know, less walked, if you will. But it seems a little more difficult, more desirable, but more difficult. You know, I'd say.
I wish I had advice. I wish that I could say, here's the way. You know,
Steven, get out. This is useless.
Wow.
You know,
we want an answer, Steven.
I know. I have no satisfactory.
Okay, wait, then I'll reframe my question. Reframe it. So let's take a little turn here to talk about comedy now in terms of social media, AI, and everything that is required to be a comedian, like followers these days. Versus you grew up in a time when none of that. It was like you said, just handing out pieces of paper. What'd you say?
VHS.
VHS. Yeah.
By the way, that was not a good time.
So would you say now is a better time to be a comedian?
No.
No. Oh God. Okay.
There's never a good time.
Everyone should quit.
There are things that I look back on and go, oh my God, I came in exactly the perfect time to be a comedian. But there were things that were terrible. And then there's things now that are amazing, but it's a terrible time to be a comedian. So it's not ever better or worse. There's just benefits and drawbacks that change and shift. When I was starting, it was amazing because there were no other fucking comedians. And if you were a stand-up and someone found out you were a stand-up, they would say to you, even if they didn't ever see your act and you weren't making a living, which I wasn't and they hadn't, they'd say, that's amazing. What you do, I can't even imagine how. I mean, I would be. I could never do what you do. Like 10 years into my career, like by the earlier mid 2000s, people would say, "Oh my God, you're a comedian. You must know my cousin David. He's a comedian."
Like Jesus Christ.
Because so I got in it to the exact same time. I didn't know that. I didn't have the perspective to appreciate that because I was just starting, and how the fuck would you know? This is a great time. I didn't have someone from the future come and go, enjoy this now, asshole, because you have no competition and you suck, and enjoy the fact that you don't have to be that good for people to hire you. The downside was I could never get a tape because a camera, it wasn't like this. You didn't have phones on camera, cameras on phones, so it took me 7 years to get a 5-minute fucking tape.
Whoa.
Because every time I'd have a good show, there was no camera. And if I had a bad show, there was a camera. And if I had a good show and there was a camera, the mic would cut out. If I had a good show and there was a camera, I'd walk off the fucking outside of the camera. And it was always fucking something. And it wasn't until 2003 that I had a fucking videotape of myself doing stand-up. So only fucking how did I even get on stage anywhere? Because word of mouth? I don't know, fucking grace of God. So that was horrible. And I showcased for Just for Laughs, and one of those I was 25. I showcased for Just for Laughs. I got like 6 applause breaks. They tried to sabotage me. And because all the headliners, whatever, the club didn't like me and whatever. I was young and everybody else was in their 40s. And they sabotaged me. They put me on at the end. I still had a killer set. And one of the fucking comics turned off the camera. And I would have had a copy of that set and been able to take it everywhere and show that I'm really good.
Yeah.
And...
They were like, fuck you.
Technology. Yeah. So there were things that were better and there were things that were worse. And now there's 70 fucking million comedians who all have a set where they're doing crowd work or whatever, and they have a picture of themselves at the Improv, and they think that they're providing the illusion they're professional comedians, whatever. Mm. But there's also a camera everywhere. So if I do capture something that I really want to use, then I can use it. And so it just, there's no, but advice, I would say this, the beefing and having your podcast where you cause shit and talk shit and make everybody upset, that's a way to get traction. If you want to live that life.
I thought you were going to be like, don't do that.
I think my sarcasm said, I am not that guy. I want to live that life. But, you know, I don't know, man. Get in where you fit in. This would be my advice to any comic. And actually, probably I shouldn't share it with the world. I should share it with a few people who.
Okay.
But I'll go ahead. I'll go ahead and share it with you. Find people who really believe in you. If it's your aunt, if it's a guy from fucking Bethesda, whoever the fuck it is, find people who believe in you and try to recruit them onto your team to help you. It doesn't matter who it is. Doesn't matter if they're in comedy or not in comedy. You need people who believe in you. If it's a hard sell to get in somewhere, don't kick your fucking. Listen to Jesus. Kick the dirt off your shoes and move on.
Let's go.
That's what Jesus told his followers, right?
He said something like that.
I'm looking at him like he kind of
He's
looks.
the white guy with long hair.
He looks like a disciple. He looks like a disciple.
Methuselah over here.
Yeah. Methuselah. But he was before Jesus.
Well, let's
anyway,
just show some shout out. Speaking of that, shout out to Nick, man, who's been here from the beginning. You know,
yeah, I'm good.
Let's give a shout out to Nick,
Yes.
who's been here for the
Nick.
beginning.
Thank you, Nick.
Never a hard sell. He goes above and beyond for us just because he believes in this fake dream I'm selling him. So just don't tell him it's fake yet. You know,
Real. So real, Nick. It's so real.
You know, no, but that's good advice, though. You know, it really is. You know, because
Yeah.
I think at first you do get that pressure of like, just like I said, trying to rub elbows with the people who are on stage or the people who are, you know, how many people comics come up to me and give me nightmare stories about bookers. I'm like, why the fuck are you hanging with that guy? You know what I mean? He's the only one who gives me stage time. I'm like, that sucks. You know, you know, there's a lot of that.
Well, I got caught up in a group when I moved here, and they were just like, the behavior was so outside of mine that I got sucked in, and I could feel myself changing in ways I didn't like. And then as soon as I popped out of that, I gave up alcohol too. So my whole life, just like, as soon as I popped out of that, I was like, oh, I was not nice when I was with those people.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh yeah, no, I'm nice now. So yeah.
Yeah,
That's what you
That's what
call
you're saying.
nice? Is that what you consider nice? Jesus,
I'm trying.
You've been mean to me for
I'm
weeks.
trying. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Yeah. All right, so this is a funny one like that. We should be probably wrapping up soon. What time is it? How long have we been going on?
We're at 107.
All right, but this is something you like to ask. What's your biggest? Let's start off with your biggest bomb. Or did you remember or like the one?
That's a great
soul crushing.
Yeah,
one?
we're gonna do biggest bomb and best set. So
best set, biggest bomb. Biggest bomb. I already gave you some best sets. I got booed off at the Laugh Factory Chocolate Sundays when I was already a paid regular.
Oh,
What
They had already paid me, and I went in and I tried to follow. I was overconfident. I tried to follow. A woman went on and she did a bit about. I mean, this is Chocolate Sunday, so it's black Def Jam.
You were the white
you know,
chocolate.
2002, maybe 2003, and she went on and did a bit about smelling her pussy while she was dancing at the club, like. She did it to see if she was fresh, and I tried to follow her by bagging on her.
Oh no!
And they fucking turned on me and booed me off, and I was like screaming at, not like Michael Richards, thank God.
Oh yeah, we just saw that. We just saw that.
I was like, fuck you, motherfuckers, da 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 da. And then I got off, and I was like gonna take my own life. And I remember Chris Spencer came out. He was the host. Chris Spencer, shout out, came out and he was like, "Hey man, you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll be all right," you know. But that was kind of like I deserved that one in a little bit of a way. Like I had done Chocolate Sundays and killed so many times that I really thought my shit was great.
Yeah, you were gonna get up there.
And I was stoned a lot back then too. I don't know. I shouldn't be making excuses. It was just a bad bomb. And then Chocolate Sundays. Like shortly after that, they put a graduation system in place for the comics to become regulars. They were like, this guy, just because he killed a few times, maybe he wasn't ready.
Oh,
So they put a
no.
graduation
So
system
you
in place.
bombed so bad they had to alter their infrastructure on how.
I was the Shaquille O'Neal. I was the fucking Shaquille O'Neal. They changed the rules because of me. I don't know for sure if it was me, but
Steve.
it was ironically shortly after that they were like, "Oh, now you have a graduate spot," and I had to do a couple of those before I got back to
work your way back up
but,
there. You know?
Yeah.
yeah, man. Well, so, but I also performed on Chocolate Sundays. Like I have a thing with me on the list for Chocolate Sundays with Patrice O'Neal.
Oh, wow.
cool.
I shared a stage with Patrice O'Neal. I didn't know who the fuck he was. Nobody knew who he was. It was like 2002.
Yeah.
And he was new to LA. Anyway, so it was very cool. I did get like big, but that was definitely one of my big. And one more, I got hired in 2019 to headline UCLA's spring thing for their students at Royce Hall. And I was supposed to do 25 minutes. I think I only made it about 15 minutes. I ended up like telling them they were all a bunch of pussies. And, like, they were all like
you fucking spring
a bunch
breakers.
of like their parents only cared, like their parents will never leave Bank of America and shit like that. I ended up going in on them like
You
they
Bill
were
Burred
the
them.
spawn of I went in on them like they were the spawn of yuppies.
Oh my god.
And I was what was fucked up was I was so excited about the gig because it was such a prestigious gig, kind of like what you're talking about, where you're too reverent of something, you're too impressed by something, and you're so honored to be part of it. And in reality, you need to show it no respect. That's it's a hard thing. It's a hard thing to know which fork in the road to go down, because sometimes you should be reverent, and it's going to work better if you are, and sometimes you need to break your foot off in the ass of, and I should have gone into it with, I'm going to break my foot off in these people's ass and violate them, and instead I was like, I did my set, and then they turned on me, and it was a weird night, but it was definitely a top bomb. Top bomb. Because at some point I had them laughing, but I disliked them so much that worse, I made fun of them for laughing at me.
No!
I made fun of them at UCLA for laughing at me because I told them, you don't want to fuck up what you've created, the silence that you've created. You don't want to fuck that up by laughing at these jokes now and changing your mind. I wanted to take revenge on them, which made it worse.
Right.
I could have just tried to pull it out of this
kept rolling
mud,
with it.
and I didn't. So, but I really do despise rich liberal people. I really do.
Well,
I do have a.
And you live in LA.
He said rich.
Yeah. Specific. Yeah. Let me make that clear.
Yeah, so you surround
I'm
yourself by
surrounded
living in LA. Yeah.
In California, it's rich liberal central. You don't have people like that in Florida. Not really.
Well, have you been to Boca Raton?
No. They're nothing compared to Beverly Hills, dude.
I can imagine.
Brentwood. So those are my bomb.
And conversely, do you remember like his set, like one of the first times you really, really crushed it, where you're like, man, this is
the ones
amazing.
I told you about, the breakthrough session where I riffed on the crowd, and then the first black show I ever did, which changed the trajectory. Yeah. I mean, changed the trajectory of my the Black Comedy Festival in Oakland, which is actually on my YouTube. You could go on YouTube. If you go on YouTube, the first video is me. We call it Oakland Initiation, because it was like me sort of arriving in black comedy. Like I really arrived in black comedy that night. That was a rough room, and I just annihilated that crowd. And
really, wow.
And that was a breakthrough session, because it was just So that was another one, 2003, and it wasn't really a show, but there was a period in 2004 or 5. Maybe 5, where BET came to see me, and they were we're going to put you on. The woman was like, we're going to put you on this year on Comic View. Comic View had been gone, and they brought it back.
Did they bring it back?
Yeah, they brought it back for like 1 season or 2 or something. They called it Club Comic View or something. Anyway,
I kind of remember.
I was going to be booked on that, and the woman came and she saw me, and I had a great set, and she was like, you're on this year. I just love your comedy, and when they started to film, here's where it gets really bad. When they started to film, before they started to film, it's 9 months. She's telling me this 9 months out.
Yeah.
I told everybody that I knew, I'm gonna be on TV.
Oh yeah.
Which back then was a big deal. People were still watching it, and I didn't even get a call from her, and I'd call her and nothing. And people would be like, hey, have you auditioned for Comic View? And I'd be like, oh, I'm supposed to be on it. Dude, They didn't call me, and then they put a Jewish comic on who was like, yo, 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 yo.
Oh, like really,
And I was like, so, and that guy's a really nice guy. You know, I'm not trying to take anything away from him. He did really well, and he had a nice career after that. But
you don't want to say his name?
It was no, 'cause I like the guy, and it wasn't his fault.
Gotcha.
It wasn't his fault that I didn't get on, and you know, and I wasn't doing that. I was just doing what I was doing, and that anyway. So after that, I stopped doing stand up. I was just so depressed. I mean, I'm really living in my car, you know, and then I quit doing comedy for months. I didn't do stand up for several months. And when I came back, I was a different guy. I was a different guy. I was saying stuff on stage that was like angrier and more personal and more opinionated. And they let me do it. They let me do it, and I got funny doing it, and I got really much funnier because of that.
Do you think taking that break helped?
Yeah, I was gonna say it's important sometimes to take a break, man.
I've taken a few.
It wasn't a break that I took because I needed a creative process. It was a break that I took because I was depressed and down and out. I don't think it was the break. It was the decision, the pimp decision, as my friend Katt would say. Say dangerous shit. And I said stuff that was so dangerous in those clubs that I wasn't really afraid of anything per se anymore. And that was a kind of seismic, but that wasn't a show. It was a series of a period of and it was my 20s. All this was happening in my 20s, so you know,
I was just going to ask, are there any boundaries you wouldn't cross?
Well, if I can make it funny, no. But if it's the higher the stakes, the funnier you need to make it. Like you can't go, I'm gonna do an AIDS joke. I'm gonna do a rape. Yeah, I want a rape joke. You know, it's like a guy hanging out at the store, the comedy store, and being like, you know, I got my rape joke. I'm edgy. You know, I don't want to. I'm not that guy.
Yeah.
But there's personal things that I need to say that are inside me, and if I don't fucking get them out, I'll lose my mind.
Right.
So that's what stand-up was functioning as in my 20s. It was keeping me emotionally
regulated,
emotionally, like even keel. Yeah, because I wasn't succeeding. I was just struggling. I had no money, and I was, you know, nobody was going to help me. Nobody in Hollywood was going to help me.
Wait, so how old were you when you started comedy
19.
again? 19. So you started 19. You're in your late 20s at this point when you're talking about?
25 to 29 was that period where I had no money, and I was like playing those clubs. I still was playing those clubs after that, but that was the period before I met Katt, and I had money after that. I was okay.
Katt took care of you.
I had a lot of life changed. Life changed pretty good.
And you said you wrote. So in what capacity did you write for Katt?
Oh, dude, he didn't need me to write anything. He didn't need any of us. He was just trying to help us. I did write stuff. I punched up scripts. I wrote a film for him that he optioned from me. I helped out other writers of his with their projects. We punched up movies that he was doing. We did table reads. We wrote skits and sketches.
And you would work through the night.
We worked through the night. We worked through the night, yeah. And I mean, a lot of it was just us sitting around bullshitting and Katt paying us. But
sounds like the dream.
Stuff did get written. I mean, and I did get money for writing things, but he had, he just wanted to help. He even told me, he goes, I'm gonna help people who were passed over for an inferior product. Mm-hmm. That's what he said in his words. He said, I'm helping people who have been passed over for an inferior product. So a lot of his friends were comics who weren't part of cliques, and they were, and now he had his own clique.
People passed over for inferior, meaning that they look past
Katt didn't have anybody in his group who were big as him.
No.
He didn't have, the only person who showed up once in a while was Eddie Griffin, but he wasn't part of that. He was just there to be there. It wasn't like, Rogan hanging out with Burr and or Louis hanging out with Chris Rock. It wasn't like, Katt didn't help people he wasn't trying to get people who were already established. He was at that stage. Now, I don't know after I was gone, what he did or didn't do, but when I was there, he was just trying to help out people who nobody helped, who he liked and wanted help. And there were people who weren't even in stand-up. There were a lot of women that he forgot. And he was like, and I remember he would give me, well, I'm sure he did this for everybody. He said, write out a career wish list. Imagine that, right?
Oh my God, I want to be my own Katt Williams. You know, like, where's my Katt Williams? You know, shit.
Amazing, totally amazing guy. I have nothing but positive things to say about him, and I know he's been through a lot, but he helped me, and he helped a white guy.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
I was the only white guy.
How the tables have turned. You see that?
Oh boy, you guys are going to be hearing laughter at shit you're not even going to understand.
I know.
They won't get it. Yeah, no, the whole inside joke to Amistan. He's a racist boat captain. We'll just start with that. We'll just lay it out there. We'll just lay it out there for everybody to know.
Racist boat captain. He's racist and a boat captain.
Ship with a black pearl, white pearl.
All right. I mean, I guess we'll end with this because you had a question about how to be organized. You kept hammering it. I got to ask him how to be organized as a comedian. I don't know. So
that's the personal question. No, we can talk about that later, I guess. But I want to know what's going on this year, 2024, that you're excited about that's coming up that you want to.
Man. So I'm on tour, 20-city tour. I've already done the Gulf Coast. I'm going to be in Estero, Florida at the Venturinos Comedy Club tomorrow night, which is March 19th is tomorrow?
Yes.
Right. March 19th is Venturinos Comedy Club in Estero, Florida, wherever the fuck that is. Get your ass there. This weekend, 22nd and 23rd, I'll be at the Coastal Creative Comedy Club here in St. Pete Beach, and then the night after that I will be at the Celtic Ray in Punta Gorda, Florida, and then on to www.stevenlolli.com LOLLI.com stevenlolli.com. All my dates are on there. I'll be in DC, I'll be in Atlanta, and movies coming out. It's called Last Chance. It's a comedy version of Death of a Salesman. I starred in that, and it is coming out in, I think, the summer. So they're in post-production right now, and it'll be in film festivals and then streaming. Last Chance, you can look for it, and that's what's going on. I don't think there's anything other than that. If you want to know more about the Katt Williams stuff, there was an article that came out 2 weeks before Club Shay Shay.
Oh, wow.
About me and Katt. You can look it up. Katt Williams, Steven Lolli, Fresno. It was a Fresno newspaper that published it, and it'll tell you all about me meeting Katt and a bunch of stuff about him. So,
all right, well, Steven, we
amazing.
appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much
for
coming
you
guys,
man.
Yeah.
You're the man.
This was awesome. This was great.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
All right, guys. So this was You Can't Say That. Good talk.
Yeah, good talk.
All right, bam.
All right.
I'm